Okay. I think now is a great time to kick off ZK Hack Istanbul. I'm very excited to see all of you here. How has Istanbul been so far for you? Are you guys excited to be here? Yeah? Do you want to clap? Do you want to let me? Yeah. So what we're doing today is our kind of welcome session. Later today at 6:30, we're actually doing a more comprehensive kickoff with all the information about like the prizes and submissions. But just to start, I want to introduce the ZK Hack, part of the ZK Hack team. My name is Anna. I'm also the co-host of a show called Zero Knowledge. I'm the co-founder of a company called ZK Validator. And the Zero Knowledge podcast and ZK Validator actually created ZK Hack back in 2021, but it's spun out since then into its own organization. So Thor, do you want to say a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. Some of you may recognize me from around the Discord or the last ZK Hack. I am an independent cryptography and zero knowledge consultant, and I've worked on several study groups in the ZK Hack Discord server and have done some education stuff outside of it too. So hello everyone.
And hi everyone. So yeah, I'm Gaylord, engineer by trade. I actually got to know ZK Hack from ZK Hack Lisbon, which I was participating in with my young friend here. And yeah, being working with the ZK Hack team for a while now, and yeah, very excited to be on this side of the stage this time. So yeah.
So I want to share a little bit about ZK Hack. We think of it as an emerging hub for education, for ZK education. It started as an online kind of puzzle hacking competition. Since then, we've done 3 of these online events. I am curious, who has been to an online ZK Hack event? Please, actually, let's clap. I want to hear it. Okay. Oh, okay, there's some good, okay, amazing. So after doing these online events, which, by the way, we're going to do another one early next year, we decided we wanted to do hackathons. And our first hackathon was in Lisbon in the spring. Was anyone at ZK Hack Lisbon here? Clap if you were here. Okay, a couple people, good. So you know kind of what to expect with this event. But yeah, with ZK Hack, we've also created educational content like the ZK whiteboard sessions, and we do these ongoing study groups, like what Thor was just mentioning, where we usually pick a piece of content and then we just get together a small group of people to learn it together. And we have the Thaler book study club that's been running now for 2 years. We have the Moon Math Manual and some more soon. So if you are interested in maybe joining one of these study groups, it's all in the Discord. So the entire ZK Hack, kind of like all the channels can be found on zkhack.dev. Other things to note here, if you want to see the old puzzles that we originally hacked on and their explanations and solutions, you can find them here. You can also find the ZK Mesh newsletter, which is a monthly newsletter which we've been also doing for many years. It now is under the ZK Hack umbrella. And you can find the link to our Discord, or you can scan this. I feel like most people here are now in the Discord. I know we bothered you a lot, being like, join the Discord, da da. But we actually have a secret channel for ZK Hack Istanbul. So if you are in the Discord and you're not in that channel, please find someone from the ZK Hack team with the ZK crew sticker, and they can add you to that role, which will allow you to see that group. So a little bit about this event. We have 3 days of time together. Today we're going to be doing the partners workshop, and at 6:30 we're doing the official kickoff ceremony. But so just one thing, actually I'll just continue here, but this venue closes in the evenings, and so we decided to really start it a little bit on the early side and end it a little bit later. Saturday, our plan is to do lots of hacking. We have these Q&A sessions. We have this Turkish lamp workshop. If you've been in the Discord, you saw us put a little call out for this. We only have 30 spots for this, but if you want a little break from your hacking, you want to do something very different, please sign up for that. We'll share it again. We also provide lunch and dinner. And then on Sunday, we have our submissions at 12 o'clock, noon, lunch, judging, and prizes. This is the Wi-Fi, if you don't already have it. I believe there are signs around the venue, but maybe you want to take a quick shot. And for today, we're going to be, so what we're doing right now is sort of the hello and intro to the ZK tools workshop. After this, we have our partner workshops. We have our partners Polygon, Aleo, Ola, RISC0, and O1JS presenting. We're then going to break. And actually, it's at the 5:30 break that if anyone doesn't have a team at that point, we're going to create sort of like a location where you can meet other potential teammates. And what did we say, actually? I think we said it was going to be in the second building. But we'll tell you more about that during the day. And then at 6:30, as mentioned, we have kind of the kickoff presentations where we talk more about bounties. And then we have dinner at the waterfront building. So a few rules. I'm going to go more into detail about this at 6:30, but don't break stuff, don't smoke, don't bring the cats inside, although they might come inside anyways. But yeah, there's two buildings. Currently you're in sort of the modern building, as we call it, but there is also the waterfront building that we also have access to. As mentioned, it's only open from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m., and it is closed at night. Bit of a shame. We really had hoped we could stay overnight, but we can't here. If there's ever an emergency or anything that goes on, please find the ZK Hack crew. We do have an ambulance on site if we need it. Yeah, submission time is Sunday, November 12th at noon. Don't be late. Okay, so now Thor is going to, well, actually, both Thor and Gaylord are going to share a little bit about the ZK tooling landscape. Each one of our workshop hosts are going to be doing a deep dive into a specific language, but we thought it would be a good idea to kind of give you a bit of the lay of the land. So please take it away.
Thank you, Anna. And as Anna mentioned, there's a couple of tools, DSLs, virtual machines that we're going to be running through really quickly today. So if you maybe don't have the best idea of what you're building yet or what you're going to build with, hopefully this might help you learn sort of like what stuff you might check out to build with. And I just want to emphasize also here that if you're building with one tool, oftentimes you can sort of discover things about how you want to sort of build in general by looking at a couple different tools. So even if you have something that you're already pretty confident you're going to work out, I would invite you to check out some of these tools. And so I'd like to start with like maybe drawing a little bit of a divergence between what a DSL and a virtual machine is. So if you think about how a program works, it's usually compiled to a set of assembly instructions that then your computer executes. So a virtual machine is literally they've built a zero-knowledge circuit for each instruction, and then they tie all of those circuits together and then produce a program that proves each instruction set by set, and then probably turns it all into one big proof or does some proving over all of those instructions. Whereas a DSL is, well, basically the circuit, what you write gets turned into a circuit. And often, like from the developer perspective, a virtual machine is going to look more familiar to languages you may already be familiar with, like Rust, for instance, is a common language that virtual machines tend to target. So if you're already a Rust developer, these virtual machines are going to look really accessible and familiar and have, to a large extent, an overlap with the tooling that you're already familiar with. On the other hand, the DSLs often give you a higher level of customizability over exactly how the circuit is going to be laid out, and you can usually eke out a bit more performance that way as well. The approaches to building these also tend to diverge a little bit in terms of the proving stack, but that's a bit lower than the weeds than we're going to go into. So we're going to run through each of these tools now, starting with one of the earlier ZK circuit writing tools, the DSL Circom. So Circom was developed by Jordi Baylina, who is with Polygon, and is a fairly low-level, extensively supported circuit writing library. And if you're familiar with like any existing zero-knowledge applications, there's a pretty decent chance they were written with Circom. It has a fairly wide library support and has been a popular candidate for writing zero-knowledge circuits for a long time. On the other hand, it is very low level, and so you're going to have very low-level access to the way that your circuit gets laid out. And that can that's very powerful in case where you want that performance, but it can be a bit overwhelming if you haven't worked with zero-knowledge circuits before. Moving on. Next up, I would like to introduce Lurk. So Lurk is a Lisp. And if you're familiar with Lisps, Lisps sort of straddle the line between low level and high-level languages, in that they're basically built as an instruction set that can append new instructions to itself, which is a fairly powerful concept. And the zkDSL is built on top of this Lisp approach to language construction, taking advantage of, or the Nova proving system is a folding scheme that specifically takes advantage of the construction of a Lisp-like language. So if you're familiar with Lisp and want to build with Lisp, I would encourage you to check Lurk out. Next on our list is Cairo by Starkware. So Cairo is a Rust-like DSL, and we're starting to get into like the solidly like middle range of like how high level to low level these languages are. So Cairo is maybe a language that will be familiar to a lot of you. It's also a relatively early entrant into like the zero-knowledge circuit tooling space. And if you've looked at Cairo in the past, Cairo has changed quite a bit over time. It's from its initial release as Cairo 0 or Cairo 1 to its current iteration, and has a lot more tools for developers to build relatively ergonomic circuits. And if you're familiar with the StarkNet ecosystem, there's a lot of great examples online. So I'd encourage you to check that out if you're interested. Next up, I'd like to introduce Aztec's Noir language. So Noir is a relatively recent entrant into the DSL tooling space, and developers have picked it up as a language that supports a lot of higher level abstractions over circuit writing. It's developed by Aztec and is intended for developers to be able to write private applications that are verifiable either on Aztec's blockchain or with EVM. Next up, I'd like to introduce you to Leo. So you may know Leo's developing company, Aleo, also from the Z Prize competition, which has been pushing forward the limits of how fast we can use cryptographic hardware to accelerate our proving and verification times. So Leo is another Rust-like DSL. It looks relatively similar to Rust in a lot of ways, and has a lot of features for developers to sort of shape how they're thinking about how the circuit will be laid out, but also it does so in a relatively high-level way. So you have a lot of control over the performance and layout of your circuit in Aleo that could be very interesting if you're looking for something that kind of straddles the lines between high-level tools that give the developer a lot of power, but also tools to give the circuit a lot of performance for writing private applications. And then rounding out the DSL approaches, I'd like to introduce you to O1JS. So O1JS is I think its unique feature is that it is a DSL that is embedded into an existing programming language that you might already be familiar with if you write if you do any sort of web stuff, work with JavaScript or TypeScript. So O1JS is a TypeScript SDK that you can use for computing proofs in the client's browser or to do server-side proving. So if there's anything that you can think of in terms of an application, if you're considering any applications that might be able to take advantage of a client computing on their local browser that then retains the privacy of the client's sort of whatever the browser computation is doing, the O1JS's TypeScript SDK might be a great candidate for that. And so if you're interested in working with a user's browser, I would encourage you to check out O1JS. And we're going to finish off with two virtual machines that both should have some workshops later today. As I said at the top of the talk, virtual machines tend to be relatively higher abstraction in that you're going to be working with languages like Rust. In this case, you will specifically be working with Rust. So Ola is a virtual machine that has the developer write Rust using the Ola virtual machine specific types that look relatively similar to Solidity. So if you're familiar with Solidity already, the Ola virtual machine should look relatively familiar for you. And Ola is specifically aiming to make both public and private applications possible, with private application users able to disclose their data to comply with regulatory responsibility. So if you're interested in building for a relatively high-level, approachable Rust-based approach to building a circuit, I would encourage you to check Ola out. Last up, we shall visit RISC-Zero's zero-knowledge virtual machine. And RISC-Zero was a fairly popular candidate for the last ZK hack because, again, it's a Rust environment that you're developing your circuits for. And what's really special about this is that a lot of the ecosystem crates that you might be familiar with as a Rust developer are inherently interoperable with the RISC-0 virtual machine. And they're trying to make it as interoperable with existing Rust tooling as quickly, so you can get developing as quickly as possible and rely on things that already exist. So recently, RISC-0 announced the Bonsai verifier, which is the RISC-0 EVM verifier. So if you're a smart contract developer and interested in developing zero-knowledge applications that get verified on-chain in an EVM environment, that might be interesting. So just to review, we talked about 8 different approaches that you might use to build a zero-knowledge circuit to do some verifiable computation. And you might think, well, I already kind of know what I'm going to build with. I would encourage you to check out some of the things that might sound like they might also be up your alley. If you're familiar with building with one virtual machine, check out the differences between them and maybe give that, bring that sort of experience back to the developers. I'm sure they would love to hear sort of like your comments on how it feels to build with their tools. And in particular, if you would like to start building quickly, you might consider building with a virtual machine, but you might discover you might want more customizability, and you might want to move lower down the stack to take advantage of like a higher grain tool that lays out your circuit precisely how you as the developer say it does.
Or you may actually start at that lower level, with that lower level language, and then realize that for the hackathon, to be able to build something quickly, you might have to move kind of further up to a higher level environment. Yeah.
Thanks, Thor. So, yeah, thanks for giving this overview of the landscape of the different ZK, all the ZK tooling that's available. So now we have that in mind. We thought it would be interesting and fun to maybe give a bit of an approach from the hacker's perspective. So now you have this idea of the tech that's available. Okay, what do we do now? I guess is the question. So what makes ZK Hack kind of unique compared to the other Web3 hackathon that most of you probably participated in already is, well, you have the application building aspect, which is, I guess, similar, even though we'll try to focus on ZK apps here. You also have the applied cryptography angle. So where you can actually solely focus on crypto primitives such as signature verifying or implementation, etc. So now it's the second version of the IRL hackathon that we've been organizing. So we actually have a bit of history. So with that in mind, let's try to look at a few examples of past projects and see how they kind of place in this scope of possibilities that you have at ZK Hack. So the first example we're going to look at is ZK Safe, which received the third prizes at ZK Hack Lisbon. So with this one, we're more on the application building side. So that's a one-person team. That's a project built by Emiliano. Sadly, he's not here. And the idea he had was to allow a user to use the Gnosis Safe wallet, not by using private keys, but by using the Web2 accounts. So he was able to leverage that and use ZK through a set of products that were able to abstract the cryptography aspect from here. So yeah, basically he was able to build this end-to-end application without getting his hands dirty, so to speak, playing with the cryptography side. So that's kind of one side of the project. Of course, the interesting part is like he figured out there are like maybe a few bugs in the products, was able to get some feedback from the team. They were fixing it like on the fly. Then he was keep building, etc., etc. Did that quite a few times. But that's part of the game. So actually be prepared for that. So the other side of the spectrum, that's another example of something built at ZK Hack Lisbon by a team of 4, the Codex team. So Dmitry, Balas, Shaba, and Jesse. I don't know if they're here actually. No. Doesn't seem so. And so that was more from the cryptography angle. So they had a Haskell as part of their skill set in the team. So they decided to actually build a custom macro assembler, a compiler, for them to implement some implementation for Poseidon to hash function in Circom and Maiden. So you can see how this is the applied cryptography side of my Venn diagram. The interesting part is actually the intersection of it, which I should have done bigger actually in the diagram. And one example of that is ZK P2P, so built by the team of 4, Sachin, Richard, I think they're here. Yeah, I can see you, mate. Hey guys. And with Brian and Alex. So they built an end-to-end product But also, they did play with applied cryptography because they had to work on Circom. I think it's actually you, right? Sachin and Richard, you played ZK circuit engineering, if I'm not mistaken. Alex was playing more, it was more like connecting the API, kind of doing the web at the front end, so to speak, with Brian working on the smart contract, if I'm not mistaken. So you can see how the skill set from different people can actually allow for building a project within 1 weekend. And yeah, interestingly, this is actually still live. I think you guys have some announcement coming on. So you see how a project idea at a hackathon can actually become, well, a real project live in prod. There are so many more examples like that. I tried to make it short, so I didn't put more than that. But yeah, I want to mention Zero Gravity, of course, because they were the grand prize winner. It was a ZKML focused project. There are a couple others in there. A couple others are more like application building, again, with the cryptography being abstracted, such as Stark Cyclone. And yeah, of course, Fruity Friends, with my little fruity friend here, Theo. And so yeah, you see how, as a newbie, if you don't know about cryptography, that's fine. You will play with the tech, maybe find out some bugs, but you will be able to build like a proof of concept at least within that weekend. That's what you should aim for. And if you want to go for the applied cryptography angle, well, even better, because that's what we are actually here for.
Yeah. And maybe just a last note about the sort of state of this ecosystem. So like, there are other hackathons in the Web3 space that are dealing with tools that are very developed. The documentation is developed, the tooling's developed, it's been there for a while, it's, a lot of hackers have used it. In our case, this is the second ZK-focused hackathon that we're putting together. It is still very, very new for a lot of these tools to even be usable. I remember at ZK Hack Lisbon, we were like, will anyone be able to build stuff? And they did. We had 33 projects submitted last time. It was amazing. And we now have 6-7 months later, obviously the tools are that much better. But I think teams here, the sponsors and just generally the ZK teams, they love to hear feedback from you too. If you want to potentially contribute to what they're building, I think now is still a time that you can do that. And so, how do you approach this hackathon? Well, you can learn, you can just come to these workshops, you can meet with the teams, you can build, which we hope you will do. It is a hackathon after all. You can contribute. So here we think of like you could contribute to a library, you could contribute to the toolkit, you can collaborate. Hopefully you get to find maybe your future co-founders, or you just get to try out working with a friend and see how it is. Hopefully you can be creative, and hopefully you can challenge yourself as well. So we wanted to just highlight in the room, we don't know if all the teams are here, but our top sponsors who are going to be giving workshops, we just want to see, is Polygon here? Can you just put your hand up? So there's a couple Polygon folks here, good. Okay, the RISC Zero folks, are they in the room? Anyone from RISC Zero? Oh, they might be out in the hall. Okay, Aleo? Anyone from Aleo in the room? Yeah. Okay, O1JS? O1 Labs? Yes, okay, wow. Okay, we got a couple O1. Ola? Yeah, okay, the Ola people are here. So all of these teams have booths out there, and actually after their workshops, we've kind of encouraged them to go back to their booths, so you can also find them there. If you want to use their tools and you have any questions, that's where you can find them. Also, the ZK Hack team, as I mentioned, we're around. We're at the info point, and you can look for us with the ZK Crew sticker. We're always going to help. There are other sponsors, and we're going to go through the full sponsor list at 6:30. They are also often on site, so if you are using a tool that is not in this tool set, you can also maybe ask in our Discord to see if someone's on site for those other tools. And I think that leads us to the end of our not quite intro. We have our kickoff later today, but yeah, this sort of wraps up our overview of the ZK landscape. We're so excited to see you. I hope you're excited for this weekend. I hope you're excited to build. Yeah, thank you, I guess.